Friendship is a beautiful thing. Have you ever met someone that you like but their children make you crazy? I met such a person when I was providing childcare during Mass. Janet was a nice person, but her son David was hyper. She didn't seem to notice him running up and down the aisles and doing his siren impression as he went. We were both pregnant, so we had that in common. She was outgoing, laughed a lot, friendly and relaxed, all traits that I admired. I knew I'd see her again, but it would be nice if she would lock David in a closet. Just kidding. Sure enough, she invited my family over to her home for dinner. Short of lying, I couldn't see a way to avoid the invitation. When we arrived, David was a different person. My oldest boy and David hit it off and became not only playmates but good friends. Now I really felt guilty for judging Janet on my impression of her son. As the evening went on, we shared stories about raising children, grocery stores, the usual things, until she told me about Fred, her oldest son. Fred had died just before David had been born. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. Janet wasn't full of self-pity, bitterness or anger, she just accepted Fred's death as having been God's plan for her life. Janet and I became very good friends. A few months later she gave birth to Jane. She was a beautiful little girl. Then I gave birth to Paul. Since Janet and I lived so close, only 2 blocks apart, we spent a lot of time together. But then my life fell apart. I called Janet from the emergency room. Paul was in serious trouble. Janet dropped everything and came to the emergency room. The doctor told us that Paul only had a matter of hours before he would die. It seems he was born with a birth defect in his heart. I was crushed. Only Janet really knew how I felt. Family, friends, and our feel better, but they couldn't. Janet was the only one that could do that for us because she had lived through a similar experience with Fred. It seemed like she always knew what to say and she always knew when to listen. When you lose a child, you have a big hole in your heart that will never be filled. Janet sent us a sympathy card which said, Heaven is a little bit better because Paul is there. A few months later her husband was transferred to a city about an hour and a half away. We kept our friendship up with lots of letters, cards, and an occasional trip. We were both pregnant again, but I was afraid this time, afraid because of our experience with Paul. Tommy was born and he was perfectly normal. Janet gave birth to Patrick, who had Down's syndrome. Life moved on for both of us, and even though we were now states apart, we continued our friendship. I received a late-night call from David. He was all grown up and had become a successful businessman. Janet had lost her battle with cancer and had gone home to the Lord. David went on about how much I had meant to his mother. Little did he know that she was my strength. I'm sure heaven is a little better because Janet is there. Janet and I had a strong friendship that lasted over the years. A friendship so open that we shared all our hopes, joys and fears. Always remember, God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him might not perish but might have eternal life. Now that's a love that's amazingly strong. A God-given life of faith is worth living and has a wonderful retirement plan.